Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at the good old leak list once again, and this one makes a lot more sense than the previous ones we've had, so it actually has more of a chance of being right, especially since some of the stuff that it has talked about has already been released, and this was actually noted on the 20th. I didn't want to touch it because I actually thought it might be going somewhere, and so I think it's time to, before we looked at the ludicrous stuff, now let's have a look at the stuff that is actually more believable. As always, I'm going to cover naval, aviation, and ground. We're going to split this into two videos, so this one is going to be naval and ground, and the other one is going to be aviation. So if you're interested in either, make sure to check them out. Let's get into it. The first vehicle we're going to look at is the M109A3. Now this is obviously a variant of the M109 howitzer. It is a vehicle which is used not just by the US, but pretty much half of the world, if not more. And the A3 variant is the specific one, which is all of the standard M109s, which were upgraded to the M109A2 standard. This gave them a different gun. Basically, instead of the 155mm M126 cannon in the M127 mount, they then were given the M185 cannon in the M178 gun mount. They also had a bunch of other additions to it, basically kind of like a midlife upgrade if you want to see it like that. And one of the main ones is they massively increased the amount of ammo it could carry by 8 rounds. So now it could carry 36 of them, which is pretty nice. The vehicle itself would be in the US tree, but it would have a chance of going in pretty much every tree in the game, and would give America its first proper SPH, especially since a lot of other nations have got theirs already. The next vehicle is the M72 Chaparral. Imagine you take an M113, take off the top of it, add a launcher which has access to AIM-9 Sidewinders, and that's pretty much what the Chaparral was. It was supposed to be used alongside the M163, so therefore you would have a slightly longer range AA system, and then a slightly shorter range AA system with the gun mounts. There was a ton of different kind of variants of this thing, and also it's another vehicle which was used a lot by a bunch of different countries. At the same time, there was also variants which didn't just use, ground sidewinders. Also stuff like the Stinger was used as well on some of the variants, such as the MIM-72G. So we could maybe see this stuff around the place in that way. It would just be another AA for America. But also, it is used by a ton of different countries, especially Israel could also get it, so maybe they are going to get another high-tier AA, which would be quite nice for them. We also have a vehicle which is labeled the T90GB, which is probably talking about the T90S Bishma, which was in the dev server, I think last time or the time before. But basically what this is it's a upgraded T90S, the T90S being the export variant of the standard T90 from Russia. This is a Indian vehicle, and the upgrades that it gets is it gets a new set of thermal sights for the vehicle, and also it uses Russian Contact 5 explosive reactive armor, and also technically it has the new welded turret instead of the cast armor one, giving it more protection compared to other T90Ss. They are also looking to upgrade the T90s with some other ideas as well, such as APSs and also hard kill systems, which is pretty cool. So we'll have to see what goes on with that, but at least when it comes to War Thunder, pretty sure it's just the standard Bishma. Then you have the Leo PSO. This is actually stated as just the Leo PSO, so I'm just going off it's the Leopard II PSO that it's talking about. This was actually in the early part of the year in one of the dev servers. It appeared in one of the files. This is the Peace Support Operations vehicle. It's basically a demonstrator just to kind of show what the Leopard II can do, and adds on a bunch of armor to the side of it, and also puts a big old scoop on the front of it as well. The big main thing though is it does have a weapon station on the top of it, and also it is unmanned, so therefore you can kind of use it without having to expose yourself, which is quite nice. So extra protection on the sides of the turret and also the hull, a dozer, and then a little unmanned turret on the top to be able to be used from the inside. There's also a Leclerc 21 Azure. This is talking about a Leclerc with the Azure kit on it. Basically, what the Azure kit is a additional set of protection for the vehicle in the form of side skirts of composite material, bar armor on the rear of the hull, and also turrets to protect against rocket-propelled grenades, and also extra protection on the engine against petrol bombs. So basically additional armor to deal with, munitions that would be held by standard soldiers. It also has a remote-controlled 7.62mm machine gun on it, on top of the, of course, 120mm cannon. And this up armor kit was actually for the UAE armed forces, not necessarily the French ones. So maybe this could be a squadron vehicle, or might just be an additional Leclerc to the tech tree. Either way, it would be nice to see. For naval, we start off with the HMS Glamorgan, or the D19. This is a county-class destroyer, and it is a Cold War destroyer from the British. It's a pretty cool vehicle, actually. It was actually commissioned in service in 1966, and it's kind of similar in the style of the Bravely, or the Bravey, that we've seen in the USSR tech tree. So it has two 4.5-inch guns on the front of it, the dual mounts that you may be used to on pretty much all of the general British destroyers which are post-war. They're very fast-firing, they generally do pretty well, but the major difference between this and a lot of other destroyers that you've seen is it has access to missiles. It has 4 MM40 Exocet missile launchers, it also has 2 Oerlikon 20mm, 1 Sea Slug GWS SAM on it, and then also 2 mountings for Seacat GWS 22 SAMs as well. It can also technically carry a helicopter, so maybe we see a helicopter as a next kind of like hydroplane vehicle for Britain, which would be kind of cool. And also it has pretty powerful radars and sonar and all of these wonderful things. So incredibly powerful destroyer, which we may see in the future. There's also another destroyer for America, the Forrest Sherman. Now this is actually part of its own named class, the Forrest Sherman class, and it is another set of Cold War destroyers. This one was one of 18. It was actually preceded by the Mitchell class, which we obviously already have in the game, so it actually has a pretty similar armament. It's got 3 5-inch guns, 4 3-inch guns, some hedgehogs, and also some torpedo tubes. But the interesting thing about this set of destroyers is some of them were actually upgraded to the guided missile destroyers. I don't think the Forrest Sherman itself was, but these machines were commissioned in the 50s and all served into the 80s. They were definitely there for a decent amount of time for America. You have the Charles F. Adams as well, which is part of the Charles F. Adams class of destroyers. These were guided missile destroyers from the 60s in America and commissioned all the way into the early 2000s. Basically, these were the definitive set of Cold War destroyers for the US. If you're looking for systems, or if you're looking for kind of technologies that the US was using during that time in naval, this is the area that you go. They had the Mark 11 missile launcher on them, or the Mark 13. They also had access to the RIM-24 Tartar SAM, the RIM-66 as well, the Harpoon, 2 5-inch guns on it as well, and then also an ASROC launcher and some torpedo tubes too. They had pretty much everything, and also even served in the Hellenic Navy for Greece, which is pretty cool. Then the last one is the Deutschland cruiser, basically part of course, the Deutschland class. We actually already have a Deutschland in the game, in the form of the Grafspee. So the Deutschland should be quite nice to see as well, being of course the namesake of the class. It had 6 280mm guns in triple turrets, 8 150s, and of course some torpedo tubes as well. The main interesting thing about this class of cruiser is the simple fact that it had some big old guns on it, but also didn't have a ton of armor. So very much similar to the battlecruiser idea, but maybe just slightly smaller. An interesting set of vehicles that we've seen in this league list. Hopefully it is true, because if that's the case, this would be really enjoyable. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orangetail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R., and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.